Hi, I'm Dr. Mario Burns, and I'm reading Manifesto. What happens when we die? This is perhaps the most puzzling question that humans have grappled with since human existence. I have not seen any proof to answer this question in my lifetime or anyone else's lifetime regarding what happens after we die. In fact, I question those who claim that they know what happens after we die. I often wonder questions such as who did they talk to and what proof do they have? Despite the differences in cultures and belief systems, what you will find when these questions are asked is that it ultimately comes down to faith. The use of faith is the critical part of many religions and belief systems because often the claims are unfounded and there is no actual evidence or proof of these stories. Many of these stories surrounding religion have been passed down for thousands of years, and the books that the stories come from have been written and rewritten over those years. Ultimately, you are left to rely on the belief system and to have faith in whatever you believe. I grew up in the Missionary Baptist Christian Church in St. Louis, Missouri. I went to church on Tuesday evenings for prayer meetings, Wednesday evenings for Bible study, Thursday evenings for choir rehearsal, Saturday mornings for choir rehearsal and food service events, and on Sundays I was in church from 8 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. On Sundays I participated in Sunday school, Bible study, and I sang in a choir. Additionally, I helped my mother clean the church twice a week along with the rest of my immediate family. This routine is what I experienced all my childhood up until the age of 14 when I got a job and I had to work weekends. This is when I stopped attending church regularly. I detail this information to state that I am familiar with the church and I appreciate the church and all it does for millions of people in the United States and billions of people across the world, i.e., charity, schools, food, daycares, etc. What I'm sharing in this manifesto in no way is intended to be an attack on the church, and I'm not speaking against any religion. I have a great respect, appreciation, and understanding of how religion has played a role in shaping human history and religion's impact on the world. I also respect and appreciate all religious belief systems. In no way am I intended to change others' beliefs because I recognize that each is to be respected and each religion is just as valid as any other belief system. I tend to focus on Christianity or make references to Jesus because although I am familiar with the major religions of the world, I am most familiar with Christianity because of my upbringing. For instance, if I was born in Saudi Arabia, my most familiar religion would most likely be the Islamic faith. Or if I was born in India, my most familiar religion would most likely be Hinduism. Given this fact, you can replace any reference to a religion with the religion or belief system you are most familiar with. As a child, I paid attention to the stories within the Bible, and I always questioned them. I questioned the stories of the Bible and their veracity because many of the stories were like fairy tales. Magical things happened in the stories, and I believed in magic at the time. I asked questions to the clergy of the church, such as why doesn't God speak to anyone? And how come there are no miracles happening today as they did in the Bible? I also asked questions about heaven and what it entailed. The response to my questions eventually would be met with someone telling me I was focusing on the wrong thing. I was told that my focus should be on Jesus Christ and how he died and rose for our sins. I was told that if I accept this story and had faith it was real, I would live forever in the kingdom of heaven once I died. I recall being a child in the church and believing wholeheartedly that this man once lived on earth who was born from a woman who never had sex and in vitro fertilization did not exist at the time. Additionally, this same man was said to have turned water into wine, made blind people see, made people walk who couldn't, and he also walked on water. Furthermore, this same man also died and came back to life after being dead for 3 days. Lastly, the same man is preparing a paradise for me and for others to go once we die. Although this story is from the Christian faith, several other religions have similar magical type stories and ultimately rely on the individual to have faith and belief in phenomena that have never been seen and never been heard. I have questioned why regarding God all my life, as many of us do. I always questioned how come there was no proof of anything regarding the beliefs I was raised to believe. I was also told not to question the Word of God, however, and that it was a sin to do so. I know to some reading this information, the very questions I have are nonsensical because their beliefs in God are incredibly strong. Again, I do not intend to single out Christianity. Christianity dominates United States culture over other religions, and although I am familiar with other religions, I am more well versed in the Christian beliefs. What I'm referring to regarding my statements and thoughts on religious beliefs can be applied across every religion and any other school of thought or belief system that explains what happens when we die. As I stated earlier, I accept the beliefs of others because I understand that there are multiple truths, and each belief system is to be respected. Religion can be a healthy aspect of life for some. However, religion can be harmful and detrimental depending upon how the belief systems are utilized and how the person chooses to embrace those belief systems. As I continually ponder about the challenges facing humanity, I find that an increasingly growing concern of mine is with the fact that billions of people are concerned about an alternate reality in which there is 0% proof of, rather than their actual real lives in which there is 100% proof of each day. Many religious teachings adhere to a common theme that there is more than one life or aspect of your life you will experience. According to many of the teachings, your life is not the life to be concerned with. You should be concerned with your afterlife and where you will spend eternity in an alternate reality. I find this manner of thinking to be harmful in many instances. I find this manner of thinking harmful because the message it sends for many people allows them not to care or be overly concerned with their actual lives and the decisions they are making in their lives. For example, often when we are faced with challenges as an individual or as a society, instead of thinking about what's going on and taking specific actions, we hear that we should pray about it or put it in God's hands. Furthermore, several of the teachings, particularly in the Christian Bible, state that having money, a means to survive, and wealth are not necessarily important. The prevailing thought and belief by many are that we are suffering on earth but will be rich in the kingdom of heaven. In fact, there is a teaching that states that it is more difficult for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. Since it is impossible for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, essentially, this is saying if you are rich, you will not make it into heaven. Teachings such as this appear to create a level of complacency and acceptance of being poor because the prevailing thought is, this life doesn't really matter, so you do not necessarily need to improve your condition. At the very least, people that are not well off financially feel validation in knowing that Jesus was not considered to be a wealthy man, so if you follow him, you do not need and you should not value money or other earthly possessions. Every person is going to die. We are all in the process of living and working our way towards death. The question of how we would die and when we would die is often unknown. However, we understand with 100% certainty the phenomena of death will take place for all of us. What happens after we die is the great unknown. We have 0% proof of anything that occurs beyond death. It is popular to believe in many religions that you go to an alternate reality or that you are reincarnated and born again into the world as another person or other species. For example, within the Christian faith, it is widely believed that you go to either heaven or hell. Heaven is considered a paradise, whereas hell is considered the worst place you could possibly imagine. Both places are alternate realities we have 0% proof of. Additionally, various religions have a belief system in an alternate reality which typically comes down to a 50-50 choice of where you end up with no other options once you die. In relation to various belief systems about the alternate realities, which boils down to the 50-50 choice of where you end up after you die, it really comes down to common human responses and decisions about harm and danger we make each day. I ask that you consider, if religious beliefs are not a factor, and someone asked you if you would like to go to a paradise, or if you would rather go to a horrible place where it's absolutely no fun and you are being punished, a common sense approach and a natural human response would be to go to the paradise. We make similar choices each day in the face of danger when we choose another path to avoid harm or potential pitfalls. For example, how many times have you used the GPS to avoid traffic or an accident? Have you ever avoided a wild animal or potentially dangerous scenario to go towards a safer alternative? I'm sure the answer to that question is yes for many of us. Given the basic human response described, when you pair it with the belief system in which you have an alternate reality in which you are faced with this similar scenario, it's almost a no-brainer. An important part of faith for various beliefs relies on basic human responses regarding punishment versus reward. Who in their right mind would choose to be punished for eternity versus being in a paradise for eternity? Regardless of the religious affiliation or belief system, it comes down to a simple choice based on basic human responses. Given this information, I have generally described the crux of various religious belief systems. After all, the end goal of the various belief systems is to ensure you end up in the paradise alternate reality and not the place where you're being punished. I share all of this to emphasize that we have 0% evidence of either of these places existing. We also have 0% evidence of anyone we have ever known or anyone in human history ending up in either of these places. Let that sink in for a moment. Out of the many things in life that we know or at least have information about, we literally know absolutely nothing about what happens beyond death. One of my primary reasons for presenting this manifesto is to encourage everyone to consider every decision that we make in our lives. I especially encourage each of us to consider the crucial decisions we make that affect others. In contemplation of these decisions, both past and present, I ask that we consider whether these decisions are made based upon a belief and something that we have perpetually had zero evidence to support. I posit that our decisions we make as a society would be different if we chose to focus on real life and what is really going on in the world. I ask that you consider how different life would be if we based our decisions on reality and not an alternate reality to consider. The one thing that everyone reading or listening right now have in common is that we have this moment in human history and we are alive. We know that with 100% certainty that in this very moment, we are all alive. I believe that is something to be celebrated, appreciated, and not taken for granted. Out of the billions of people that have lived and died over millions of years, we are alive together in this moment in human history. I believe that if we chose to focus on our actual reality, instead of having a focus on an alternate reality, life could drastically change for billions of people. Historically, many of the laws that have been made are because of an association or belief in an alternate reality that we have 0% proof of. Upon considering the multitude of instances within the United States and the world in which laws have been passed based upon an association with an alternate reality, this became very concerning and troubling. I find it concerning because basing information, laws, and rules based upon an alternate reality in which we have 0% proof has been shown to be harmful throughout human history. When you consider how many of the wars that have been fought in the past and many of the attitudes people have towards others, much of that manner in thinking was rooted in an association with an alternate reality. The politics in the United States and in other nations have historically been heavily influenced by these set of circumstances. For example, when you consider people's varying attitudes towards sexuality, it is rooted in the belief in an alternate reality. The prevailing thought surrounding judgmental opinions on others' sexuality is that some types of love between two people, such as a man with a man or a woman with a woman, is considered a sin. This sin doesn't allow you to get into the paradise alternate reality. Additionally, issues related to religious freedoms, race, sexual orientation, abortion, sex, marriage, and divorce are key examples of how various laws and rules have been established throughout history that affect people's decision-making and may negatively impact their lives or the lives of others. These are only a few examples of how society has established laws over time based upon beliefs that are not supported by a single shred of evidence of an alternate reality. If you sit back and consider how many different rules, laws, and prevalent ideas are associated with an alternate reality, it can be quite alarming. Now, with presenting this information, I feel it necessary to again emphasize that I'm not suggesting that we get rid of religion. I am not against religion. I am not intending to argue whether there is a God. What I am suggesting is that there are multiple truths. More than one thing can be true at the same time. There are different people with different beliefs, and nothing is wrong with that. I am strongly suggesting that we as a humankind look at the facts of the matter. The fact of the matter is that facts to some are not facts to others, and that is okay. What I am suggesting is that we consider being open to the beliefs of others and be accepting of others, no matter what their belief systems are, because when it boils down to it, every religious belief system that has an association with anything beyond death, there is 0% proof. There is 0% proof. My contention is that any belief system, religious or otherwise, that offers information about what happens beyond the point of death has never offered any proof of anything. It is not possible, nor has it ever been possible for us to offer proof of anything beyond death. Take a moment and consider your life, which you know without a shadow of a doubt is real. If someone offered you an all-expense-paid paradise vacation, wouldn't you want some type of proof of this vacation destination? For example, wouldn't you like to know the location, get your tickets, read a review online, or gather as much information as possible from talking to people that have visited this place? To be clear, with death, there is nothing to gather. When we die, there is no further information. There never has been and never will be. In relation to various belief systems, could there possibly be something after we die? I accept all belief systems because they are equally valid regarding beliefs about what happens after we die. So yes, there could be something. but we do not have any proof over the millions of years that humans have been in existence. When you consider the technological advances we have made, the scientific discoveries, and the advances in culture and human possibilities that we have made over millions of years, this is the consistent one area in which we have continually have absolutely no information. There are several things in life that we don't know much about. For example, I know that there are other places outside of Earth, although I don't know very much about them. Let this sink in for a moment. With death, there is literally absolutely nothing that humankind has ever had to gather information from. All we have ever had are stories, beliefs, and faith based upon no evidence of anything. I strongly suggest that we as a humankind consider how we have never had proof of anything beyond death. I suggest that we accept and embrace this circumstance wholeheartedly with a deep understanding that everything we do should be because we know we are alive right now. When we die, the world will continue to go on. The world will continue. The world will be here when we are gone. How do I know this? How do we know the world will continue to go on after each of us are gone? We know this because we have lost others, such as our loved ones, family members, celebrities, and people we don't know die, but the world continues to go on. For example, in the news, we hear about people in the United States and in other countries dying, however, we are still here, and life continues. This is an inevitable common occurrence. If anyone reading or listening to this information does not believe that the world continues to move on after you die based upon your personal beliefs, I ask that you consider actual evidence in real life that shows people establish wills and have life insurance. This is done because we know with 100% certainty that when we die, life on earth goes on. That is what we know. I propose that we focus our attention 100% on reality because that is what we know for sure. That is what we have proof of. I do not intend to disrespect anyone's beliefs. That is not my purpose. My purpose is to encourage an openness and acceptance of various belief systems. I only propose that we focus our attention on reality, not an alternate reality of any kind. If as a society, as humankind, focus intently on reality, without regard to an alternate reality, imagine how different your life and the lives of others may be. Consider how different the influences would be in politics if people accepted that there is 0% proof beyond death. If we chose to focus our attention on reality, I believe that things could be drastically different in a very positive way. For example, although there is supposed to be a separation of church and state, the influence of alternate reality beliefs has permeated politics in the United States and in other countries throughout history. If laws and policies were made based upon a litmus test to ascertain whether the viewpoints expressed were rooted in the belief of alternate realities, I believe laws would be fairer and more representative of all people. As I stated before, there are multiple truths, so someone's truth, which ultimately is guided by principles in which there is 0% proof, should not be used to create circumstances for others that victimize and villainize them. As I discussed earlier, I grew up in a Baptist Christian household. My mother is still extremely religious and extremely devout in her beliefs. I know that to my mother and billions of others, everything about her religion and everything about their beliefs are 100% real. I share this to say that I am not arguing if God exists. There is just as much evidence to suggest that there is some God versus saying there is not. It's simply a point of view in what you choose to believe, and your perception is your reality. For example, a believer in God may tell you God provides air to breathe, whereas a scientist may explain the process of photosynthesis to answer a question about air. To be clear, I'm not saying that I have the answers regarding what happens following death. What I am saying, however, is that no one else does either, and we have never known anything. What I am saying is that throughout the course of human existence on the planet, no one has ever had any proof of what happens after we die. So with that certainty, with that true undeniable fact that we all face, I say we fully embrace and accept it and recognize that there is not anything that we believe beyond the point of death that is not based upon 0% evidence. I also state that since we understand the belief in what happens after we die is based upon faith and no proof whatsoever, that we also consider the other values associated with these teachings, writings, and other beliefs based upon the overall guise of what happens after we die. I ask that we consider whether they are valid and applicable to our lives, because if the thought and belief of what happens after we die is based upon 0% proof, how many other aspects about these teachings which people have been believing should be questioned and explored? Consider how in other areas of our lives, there is rarely anything we make decisions based upon 0% proof. I want people to consider how different your life would be if you had people in positions of power that base decisions off reality versus basing them off their belief in an alternate reality, regardless of what that reality may be. Anything we conclude that is based upon what happens after we die should not be held with the same measure of validation versus something we have evidence of. To be clear, this manifesto is not meant to be an end-all be-all. This manifesto is not perfect. Nothing is. I'm proposing a different way of approaching and thinking about issues and problems without resorting to any type of belief system that is associated with an alternate reality. I propose that we as a people consider strongly whether our decisions and policies are derived from a belief in an alternate reality versus making decisions based upon statistics, evidence, information, reviews, or whatever it is you use to base decisions that are not associated with an alternate reality or something that happens beyond the point of death, because we don't know and we've never known. I strongly state that we go with what we know. What we know and what we have known throughout human history is that we are alive right now. We have absolutely no clue whatsoever about what happens beyond the point of death. Anything someone tells you or writes about regarding anything happening beyond the point of death is just as valid or invalid as what I'm telling you now. I don't know what happens. You don't know, and neither do they. However, what we have are various belief systems and religions that encouraged people to believe in something that happens beyond a point of death. This belief in something about what happens beyond the point of death has controlled decisions about life choices for billions of people for thousands of years and to this present day. Furthermore, billions of people have been affected by these alternate reality belief systems regardless of whether they believe them or not. When I was younger, I sought answers about religion. I had many questions about what I was being taught in church. I had questions about what seemed to be missing pieces of scriptures. When I couldn't find the answers within the church, I went on my own journey and did my own research. I found the answers that I needed to complete the puzzle of why there are so many various belief systems and religions. I got my answers why some of the scriptures were incomplete, and by doing so is when I also gained an acceptance and great respect for all different types of beliefs, and I understand the importance of those beliefs. What I came to understand most is humans appreciate a good story. We love good stories, movies, and plays because they are entertaining and we truly appreciate a good story. For example, if I have someone telling me a great story with miracles and all these wonderful things happening, but they also provided cautionary tales and guidance, I would appreciate that. Given said story, I also understand how parts of the story may benefit some over others. For instance, I understand how the story may benefit men over women, may benefit straight people over people that are from the LGBT communities, and how it may benefit those who have fortune and power over those who don't. If someone could provide you with a system of beliefs that answered questions about how humans came on Earth, along with answering questions about what happens when we die, it sounds good, it feels even better, I appreciate it, and that's power. Often we hear about a thought or set of beliefs regarding the world ending. I got news for you. The world ain't going nowhere. What proof do I have of this claim? How about millions of years of proof of this claim that humans have been around for as long as we could possibly imagine? For thousands of years, people have thought that the world will end. If you are reading this manifesto or listening, and it is 10, 100, or 1,000 years from the time in which I wrote this, guess what? We ain't going nowhere. I say that because this also plays a major part in the alternate reality belief systems with 0% proof. We have a quote that many people believe and generalize it to many areas of their lives. All things must come to an end. Now, many things do come to an end that we experience in life. However, this quote is inaccurate because there are several things that never come to an end. For instance, have you ever been to a beach and saw the waves crashing? Those waves never stop, and they never will. It's the way the planet works. Those waves are crashing right now as you are reading or listening to this. I'm sure if you sat and thought about it, there are several things you would think of that don't come to an end, i.e., the sun, the moon, earth rotating, the sky, stars, people dying, time, etc. Humans on earth will never come to an end. The thought of anything coming to an end and having some type of event that occurs that is associated with anything beyond that has 0% proof. We do, however, have 100% proof that humans have been around for so long that we have talked about things ending for as long as we can possibly remember. Please stop to consider how old we are or how we are older as some old objects or old landmarks that exist. Have you ever been somewhere and been told how old something is, whether it is a mountain, building, river, or whatever it may be, but when you were told how old it was, you say, wow, that is super old. Humans have been around talking about how super old that thing is that you thought about for a very long time. We ain't going nowhere, people. I don't know, nor does anyone else truly know, how human beings came to be on the planet. I felt it was important to speak on this subject because when you bring up the fact that we don't know what happens when we die, it often brings the question, how did we get here? People want a good story. People appreciate them because it makes us feel better. My answer to that question is, I don't know, and neither does anyone else. This question is on equal footing with what happens when we die. Nearly everything that I'm sharing about us not knowing what happens when we die can also be applied to the question of how we got here. The question of how we got here is a bit different, however, in that we do have some information and evidence to work with. We have been here so long that we know we will continue to be here. The only way we would not continue to be here is if we choose not to be. If we try to turn these alternate reality belief systems into a self-fulfilling prophecy, is when we choose not to be. I got news for you, however. Those who attempt to hurt themselves or others based upon their alternate reality belief systems always have and always will ultimately fail. Regardless of what those belief systems are, we still go on. The world still moves on. Most of the things in life that happen, we only can respond to them, not control them. So to answer the question about how we got here, whether it's scientific or religion, neither knows, and that's okay. I think we need to move past discussions of how we came to be on the planet. Those discussions have never been fruitful and again, can't be verified or proved. One of the healthiest experiences in life is to have the opportunity to question everything you have ever been taught or believe in. Many of us question life and death. Even the most devout person in their beliefs has questioned their beliefs at some point in time, even if to themselves in their own mind, but questions have been there. As I stated earlier, my attempt is not to change anyone's beliefs. I am encouraging acceptance of others' beliefs because no one truly knows what happens when we die. So who are we to tell them that they are wrong? I am encouraging everyone to shift the focus of their thinking from an alternate reality, which we don't know about, to a reality of our daily lives, which we do know about. If we focused on our actual lives, we would need to think much more long term, both individually and societally. I can envision a world in which people are less judgmental towards others because of varying beliefs. I can envision our laws and politics being more civil and fair-minded if we use this philosophy as a litmus test regarding policies put forth. I can envision this approach affecting varying areas in society across the world possibly. At the very least, I believe it warrants discussion, consideration, and examination by all. I propose that we need to focus on the fact that we are here and that we share this space in human history right now. I think we should collectively ask ourselves with conviction, what can we do with the time we have here? Is it important how we got here? We can look at the solar system, different rock formations, sediment in the ocean, and different artifacts found by archaeologists to attempt to ascertain any information, which often is helpful in numerous other areas. When we get down to the nitty-gritty, to the crux of the matter, regarding the whole question about how everything started, that's a question that we have been unable to answer and will not be able to answer because that question ranks up there right alongside with what happens when we die. I believe that history is incredibly important. I found that when you don't learn from history and mistakes of the past, you may find yourself repeating those same mistakes. I believe that because I've seen that. I've lived that. Being concerned about something that happened millions of years ago that we have no proof of is right up there with being concerned about what happens after we die. We don't know. We simply don't know. We've never known, and that's okay. I hope that by giving this information a chance, you have a healthy curiosity about the world we live in. I also hope that you have an open mind with grasping that we don't know anything about what happens beyond death. For me or anyone else to offer you a definitive answer about what happens when we die will ultimately always come down to what is believed in faith, not what is known or can be proven. After all, there is 0% proof.